Okay, we're going to be starting this meeting, please. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting for September 27th of the Police Service Board to order. We're new at this technology, so Deb, everything good?
I think so.
Okay, good.
I hope
Okay.
so.
Before we begin the public meeting, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance that the Police Services Board meeting is being recorded, and the video recording of today's meeting will be posted on YouTube. It's not being live streamed, but it'll be played later. So first, any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest with those are here? Is Terry just stepped out first? Oh, okay. Minutes of the previous meetings, can I have a mover and seconder for that? Member Ganzel, Member McKendrick, all those in favor? Carried. Reports from the board chairperson. So a special thank you to the town of Niagara Lake and Lord Mayor and Council for allowing us to be here. I'd like to thank Lord Mayor Pat Dart, Town Council and staff for hosting our board meeting here today. I'd also like to recognize Lord Mayor Pat Dart, Town Councilors, CAOs, staff, etc., as well as members of the public for joining us here this morning. As background for us being here today, the board decided to change the locations of its board meetings in an effort to promote community awareness of the role of the board, visiting our other parts in the region over the years. After the presentations today and following the items of business on the agenda, the meeting will be open to community members for general comments or questions. We're very relaxed on what we allow. Anyone that has shown up here will be allowed to speak. All I ask is to show some class on what you say in that. But if we don't answer your questions, it might be that we don't have the facts here. That's happened at other cities, but we always get back to you. So leave us an email or whatever on it. I'd ask if anyone would like to speak or to ask the board or police service a question to please see Don so we can hear from you. Don, you are where? Right there. Thank you. Should anyone wish to make additional comments or submissions, you may also contact the board by mail, email, or telephone. Right now, I'd like to invite Lord Mayor Pat Dart to the podium to provide comments on behalf of the town of Niagara Lake. Pat, thanks.
Thank you, Chair Gale, and welcome to Niagara-on-the-Lake, the beautiful town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, the friendliest town in Canada this year. Just got to put that in there. But I'd like to welcome yourself, Vice Chair Ganzel, Executive Director Deb Reed, and the rest of the Police Services Board. Al Caslin's not here, Dave Barrick's not here, I see, but Ken Ganzel, Vaughn Stewart, Tara McKendrick, Terry Bonham. The town of Niagara is very proud of our police services and the Police Services Board. We have an excellent commander in Jim McCaffrey. He calls me regularly, or I call him, and my questions are answered instantly. So we're very, very proud of the service that we get from the Niagara Regional Police. The fact that you only hold a certain number of board meetings in other locations, we're very, very happy that you chose us this time, and it makes us feel proud, and it'll make our citizens and residents feel that they are taken care of. And I know on many, many, many occasions, we get you probably get the comment about only having 2 officers down here, but we know we have hundreds of officers available to us. They come when they're needed. And so I know Town Council and the Police Services Board and the police get a bit of a bad rap sometimes, but I know that, and I know that most of the residents know that you're taking very, very good care of us. So I trust that you have a very good meeting today. Thank you again for being here. I just want to mention we have Councillor DeCero here. We have, who else have we got? Former councillor, or almost former councillor Jim Collard, who's no stranger to any of you. And 2 candidates that are running, Dave Dick and Gary Zalepa. Oh, sorry, sorry about that, Dennis Dick. And you'll see his signs all over. Oh, I didn't see Dave Lepp. Dave Lepp. So you've got pretty good coordination here and participation from present and future councillors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dart. And I see Janice Thompson here from the Niagara Parks Commission. Thank you, Janice, for coming. I would take it that people come in here. We start at 8:30 in the morning, so people come in later on. If there's any councillors that come in, I'll identify them or on this, but, and at the end of my comments, I'll identify our Police Service Board members as well, but thank you for allowing us to be here. We've tried to, when we set this motion about 4 years ago, we tried to set it up to hit all four corners. So now we have Smithville, Port Colborne, Fort Erie, and Niagara Lake. So I guess the next board, whoever might be on this, can start working on the interior somewhat. Terry, you're our newest board member, so you're on that, I guess. Thank you. So next on the list is the Order of Merit for Chief Brian McCullough. I'm pleased to announce that Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Julie Payette, Governor General of Canada, has appointed Chief McCullough to the Order of Merit of Police Forces. An investiture ceremony will be held in the coming months where Chief McCullough will receive the insignia of membership from the Governor General at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. The order recognizes conspicuous merit and exceptional service by members and employees of Canadian Police Forces whose contributions extend beyond protection of the community. On behalf of the board, we extend our sincere congratulations to the Chief on this very special occasion. This board is proud of the Chief's hard work, commitment, and dedication to improving the police services in our communities, as well as at the national level, and having been recognized with this outstanding honor. Chief McCullough's investor in the Order of Merit of Police Forces is a reflection of the high quality of policing services that we enjoy in the Niagara region. My congratulations to you, Chief McCullough. The stage is yours, sir.
Thanks very much for those kind words. I can't express just how honored I am to have been nominated in the first place, and I thank those that were involved in the nomination process, and to receive the award is that much more. So it means a great deal to myself and my family, and we look forward to the investiture ceremony, which hasn't been announced yet, but I'll let the board know when that is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Deb, did you have something else you had to do here or no? Okay, so I'm temporarily going to defer to my partner here, Vice Chair Ganzel. Ken, you can carry on for a second.
Yes, thank you. And again, my personal congratulations on that award. It is certainly an extremely important thing in one's career, and well-deserved and probably long overdue. At this time, Chief, I would like to call you forward for a presentation. And as some of you know, I also sit on the Niagara Lake Community Safety Committee. And over the last 13 months almost, Niagara Lake created the very first bicycle and pedestrian safety map. And we did a presentation here at Town Hall with the Lord Mayor, Jim McCaffrey from our division in Niagara Falls. And I wanted to present to you a copy of the very first, it's never been done, all done by our Community Safety Committee, with the assistance of Niagara Regional Police, through Sergeant Bill Shoenails, Constable Mike Melenkowski, Jim McCaffrey, the Ministry of Transportation out of Toronto, and our sponsor here in town, which is Vino Velo. So this is the very first bike pedestrian map, and on the back is safety messages. And I think this is so very important, and that's why this was issued. We have approximately 3 million visitors to Niagara Lake every year, and a fair number come by bicycle. And this is, we had enough money to do 5,000, and we're almost sold out. So we wanted to make sure that this is officially in the hands of Niagara Regional Police Service. And again, thank the service for their support over the years of the Community Safety Committee. It's the old Niagara Lake Policing Committee, which I think goes back almost 30 years, and we're very pleased again through the support of the service and yourself and keeping us going, and some of the projects we're working on, such as Say No to Drugs, our child safety seat, bike stuff, the farm worker program, and everything else. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, and thank you for putting all of the time and effort and work. This is, I know, something that's near and dear to your heart, and it's something that we certainly will make sure that we pass along to any of the visitors that are looking for bicycle trails. I think it provides a great option for them.
It's available at the chamber, and it's available at the counter here at Town Hall, as well as most of the bike rental shops in Niagara Lake. There is a website that goes with it, but that's under development.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So looking at the video of this meeting, they couldn't see you at all. They possibly could hear you. Ken, can you grab one of those maps just where you're sitting? You can see this video here and just show it to the people that are watching the video. Turn your mic on if you don't mind. And just show it what we're talking about here, if you don't mind.
I'll open it up.
And talk about it again, or whatever you wish. Because you were off screen there,
I was wondering about that. Anyway.
at least from what I'm seeing here. Here.
So this is the Niagara Lake Community Safety's cycle and pedestrian route map for Niagara Lake through the offices of Niagara Regional Police and a number of members, plus our sponsors here in town, the Ministry of Transportation. We officially gave copies this morning to the Chief of Police of the Niagara Regional Police Service.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cam. Appreciate all your work on this.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief and Ken. So I understand the cameras. Do the cameras go to the board members talking or to the crowd? Or does it just stay on a picture of us? Is the mayor still here? Or?
The cameras go to whoever is speaking.
When someone on this side puts their mic on, the camera will face that way, as long as the ones on the podium are off.
Okay, so I have to make sure mine's off. When a speaker's talking, as long as mine's off, it's on the speaker.
Any of the three up there.
Thank you very much.
The three on the podium are on, it'll focus there.
Oh. Thanks very much for that, Mayor. Okay, moving on, the Niagara Regional Police Service Business Plan consultation sessions. The 2019 to 2021 business plan stakeholder consultation sessions concluded in August. These consultations were held with a wide cross-section of the community. Member Stewart, Chair of the Business Plan Committee, will provide us with an update on the next stage of the plan's development process. Member Stewart, do you have any comments right now?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. We have fallen a little bit behind because one of the key people on the internal committee has been off with injury recently, and all the board members know about that. But things are returning, and I got some information for you about it. The telephone survey will take place in the month of October. It's all been arranged and ready to go, and there will be a media release tomorrow about that survey. So hopefully people won't get it confused with the people who are trying to clean the ducts in your house or whatever. So that should be underway. Schedule is currently being developed for internal external meetings because there's certainly a lot of people that have to arrange those meetings. And I don't have any dates, but as soon as I have them, they'll certainly be shared with the board. So we are underway. A lot of the internal data is already done and worked on, and now we need the external piece from the phone survey. So we look forward to getting that done in the month of October.
So I might be out of line asking this question, but I ask it anyways. Dr. Divers, how's he doing? Is he going to be up and running soon, or?
Well, I think we all saw the pictures, but he is. I guess he came in yesterday for, I don't know, for all day or part of the day or whatever it is. So he's a guy that'll, I'm sure, knowing his personality, he'll be back in a pretty short order. I'm sure the service could give you more details, but anyway, I did get an email from him to provide some information on the status of where things were at, and set us behind a little bit, but we'll catch up.
That's good to hear. And so the people in the crowd know that Jim McCaffrey, the inspector, is going to be doing a presentation, and then after that we'll allow questions from everyone in here. So we have my words, the chief's words, and then we go to Jim McCaffrey's presentation. So you're just wondering how the agenda goes here. I imagine they had copies of the agendas out front, didn't they, Deb? They were okay. Okay, next is the CAPG Annual Conference. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts its 29th annual conference from August 9th to 11th in Winnipeg. This year's national theme was Police Governance Reform, the Age of Enlightenment. The conference provided hundreds of delegates from across Canada with a unique opportunity to network, learn, and discuss various aspects of public safety and police governance. Vice Chair Ganzel and Member Stewart attended the conference on behalf of the board. Member Ganzel, do you have any comments on that? Or Member Stewart, I'll go to you next.
I have just some very brief ones on that. I can't say how worthwhile this conference was, especially with the exposure to the number of Police Service Board members from across Canada. We share a number of similar issues and similar pressures. A lot of discussion obviously takes place more at dinners or coffee breaks and like that. A lot of the discussion focused around the pending legislation dealing with cannabis, et cetera. I would suspect out of all those delegates, nobody has the perfect answer to a lot of the questions that were there, but again, a worthwhile event. And I think Member Stewart maybe attended some of the sessions that I didn't have a chance to do because you sometimes split things off.
Thank you. Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, just to reiterate briefly that Member Ganzel said about the cannabis legislation nationally, because, of course, this being a national conference, there was a lot of talk both in sessions and in the hallways, as Member Ganzel alluded to, that it's a great opportunity to talk with people who do the job we do all across the country and find out what things are in common, et cetera. So there was a lot of talk about the cannabis legislation. It was quite heartening to hear. We had Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale was there and presented to the group and made it quite clear that there will be some financial support for police services across the country in getting a device similar to breathalyzers, which will assist in the impaired driving by use of drugs. There were no amounts or details on it, but it was quite adamant there will be some support, so I would anticipate some kind of cost sharing. So that was good news to hear. There was a lot of talk, of course, about the opioid issue, and of course there were a lot of people there from British Columbia where it kind of hit the shores first with fentanyl, et cetera. And in fact, last year they had 1,500 deaths overdose because of fentanyl in British Columbia. So, and that problem, as we well know, has moved east, and it's becoming a problem here. So a lot of conversation about that. Another interesting topic that came up as one of the motions for action, and that's dealing with cryptocurrencies and looking for some federal government direction on legislating cryptocurrencies in some manner, because I guess a number of the services and boards feel that that there's a lot of potential for fraud and those kind of issues with these cryptocurrencies. So looking for some help there. And then finally, on the one evening when we have our big banquet, we had a chance for a very brief, and I thought extremely brief, tour of the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. And I would suggest anybody going to Winnipeg, put that on your list. But if you're to really do it justice, you would almost need a day. We only had an hour and a bit. But a lot of tremendously moving exhibits there about things not only in Canada but around the world as far as human rights and all of that. So a worthwhile stop if you're ever in Winnipeg. And that's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It seemed that when I became chair, every meeting was about governance. Then it went karting. Then it went opioids. I'm hoping the next subject isn't guns. I hope we've got that solved before that becomes the agenda item for every meeting in the future. But thank you for going to these. Next is the NRPS recruit graduation ceremony. On August 23rd, the service hosted a recruit graduation ceremony to welcome 13 new recruits to the Niagara Regional Police Service and 1 new Niagara Parks officer. Vice Chair Ganzel, Members Stewart and Bonham, and I attended the event where we had the pleasure of personally congratulating the service's newest officers. The OAPSB 2018 Labour Seminar. The Ontario Association of Police Service Boards hosted a Labour Seminar on September 20th and 24th at 20th and 21st at the 4 Point Sheraton Toronto Airport Hotel. The annual Labour Seminar is designed to provide various representatives of the policing community with an opportunity to participate in panel discussions on coordinated collective bargaining and other current labour issues. Bargaining Committee Chair Terry Bonham and Member Vaughn Stewart attended the seminar on behalf of the board. Member Bonham, do you have any comments on it?
Well, it was it was reasonably attended, though all boards that lend financial support to the association were not in attendance. A lot of discussion, of course, about the new legislation, and of course the big elephant in the room was whether or not any of it's going to come to fruition. But there was quite an in-depth description of what the changes are and what they're going to mean relevant to the boards. And so that, I think that was very well received, but the issue of the day is, will any or all of it come into law? So that's a saga that's still unfolding as we speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Member Stewart, did you have any comments? Good. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce the members of our board and our command team. I'm going to shut up. In order for me to talk and be heard and introduce, I can't have the pictures on them. Do you need more taxes, Mayor? Thank you, thank you. Okay, Terry, I was going to ask you to turn your mic on when I turn mine off. So I'm going to introduce the four. How do I do this, Deb? I introduce them, but nobody's watching them.
Well, when
Just
the
go
mic-
through it?
When they click their mic, the camera will pan.
Okay, so first I'm going to introduce member PSB member Terry Bonham. He's our appointee, citizen appointee on the board. So now he comes on.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Terry McKendrick, our newest provincial appointee.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Al Castleman, Chair of the Niagara Region, a PSB member.
Good morning, Chair.
Member Dave Barrick, who's Chair of Corporate Services at the region.
Pleasure to be here.
Member Vaughn Stewart, our longest serving PSB member right now.
Thank you, Chair.
This sounds so Mickey Mouse. Chief Brian McCullough.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning.
Deputy Chief Brett Flynn.
Morning, sir.
And Deputy Chief Bill Forty. Chief McCulloch and I'm sorry, I have to shut that off.
Good morning.
So Chief McCullough and Deputy Chiefs Brett Flynn and Bill Forty are our command team, and they're the best in the province. I don't mind saying that. I get compliments from other places, and they wonder where we were able to get Brett and Bill, and that let alone Brian was a homegrown talent, as was Brett Flynn. So it's been a pleasure having them as our new command team, although you really can't call it new anymore. It's been over a year now. So thank you for that. So the upcoming PSB meetings, the next PSB committee meeting is Thursday, October 11th at 8:30 at the community room at headquarters in Niagara Falls, and the next PSB monthly board meeting is at the same place on Thursday, October 25th at 8:30 in the morning. So next we go for reports from the Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just would like to echo your comments with regards to the invitation to attend Niagara on the Lake. I want to thank Mayor Dart and the Niagara Lake Council for having us here. Particularly, I want to thank Mayor Dart for his kind words with regards to Inspector McCaffrey. I would certainly echo those comments as well. I started with Jim, so maybe I'm a little biased, but Jim's a really great asset to the service and does a fantastic job as the two-district commander that oversees both Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake. So as I start, I'd like to first recognize Constable Brian James for his recent deployment to the Middle East. Brian is here with us. I want to take the opportunity to recognize him for his efforts as a member of the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve in a recent 10-month deployment to the Middle East. Brian has been a member of our service for 17 years. He's currently assigned to our Traffic Enforcement Unit. Maybe I'll have Brian just come forward to the microphone here. He can show off his new slender body. He's lost 45 pounds while he was overseas and put on a lot of muscle. He would be in his tunic #1 dress this morning, but unfortunately he's just back from the Middle East and wasn't able to get it tailored in time to be here. So he's here in his suit.
Brian, come on to the podium if you don't mind. I'll shut off my mic so it goes to you, Chief. If you don't mind, Brian, Chief, do you mind me asking if he has any words to say? Or?
I just have a few more comments to highlight his tour. So he's a Chief Warrant Officer in the Canadian Armed Forces Primary Reserve and currently the Regimental Sergeant Major for the Toronto Scottish Regiment. From October 18th, 2017 to July 15th, 2018, he was deployed with Canadian Armed Forces on Operation Impact as part of Task Force Middle East. He was the Sergeant Major for the Canadian Training and Assistance Team in Lebanon. Canadian forces were mandated to expand military cooperation with regional partners to enhance security and stability in the region and prevent the spread of violent extremism. Their mission was to help Lebanon secure their borders amid fears of Islamic State fighters slipping from Iraq and Syria to launch attacks in Europe and North America. Brian was responsible for training Lebanese armed forces in advanced combat skills, including cold weather operations. He worked with Global Affairs Canada Global Partnership and Counterterrorism Program in the Canadian Embassy in Lebanon. For his deployment efforts, Brian was awarded the Operation Service Medal Expedition with Rotation Bar. He was also nominated for and received a Task Force Middle East Commander's Commendation for developing and delivering courseware for winter training programs to the Lebanese Armed Forces. I want to sincerely congratulate Brian on your achievements and thank you for your efforts in serving our country as a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm very proud of you and appreciate not only what you do for our service, but what you do for our country. Thanks very much, Brian.
Brian, I'm going to ask to say a few words, if you don't mind. Jim, do you have?
Thanks. Thank you for inviting me today, Chief. I just want to really thank the police service for the assistance and support to get me deployed. I thought that would probably be one of the biggest challenges, but it was seamless. So from the time I inquired about how I would get away from the police service for almost a year, the cooperation and assistance I got from HR and from the traffic services and from emergency service was awesome. I never had to worry about anything, and once I left, I knew I had a job to come back to. It's great to be back. 9 months is a long time away. My wife had to kind of run the house for a bit, so I had the summer off with pay from the Army, so it's been a slow reintegration. Got to reintegrate with my family and my kids over the summer, and I'm actually looking forward to getting back to work now. It's a long time away. I had a big learning curve. I've been retraining now for a month to everything expired while I was away, so a lot of new things to learn. So. I just want to appreciate the assistance I got again, and it was a great experience. And I have a lot of skills and a skill set that I can bring back to the police service now, and I think it was a win-win for us.
Very good, Brian. It goes without saying that we're all proud of you. Vice Chair Gansell has something to say. Are you going over there, Ken? No, I'm going over there. Okay, very good. Thanks.
Brian, for a number of years, I've been part of the Canadian Forces. For a number of years, I've been part of the Canadian Forces Executive Liaison Council that encourages organizations such as our police service or other businesses that have reservists to make the deployments seamless and to support them in their actions. So on behalf of that group and your service to Canada and the world, thank you very much. And I'm very grateful to the service to see what we've discussed at the Canadian Forces Leadership Council being actually put into service. And I know you're just one of the, I think we've had other officers in our service that have done that, but I think as a board, we would be remiss by not coming forward and again, thanking you for what you've done for us as a country and what you've done for a citizen group overseas. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Brian, you're a constable with the service. Where do you work out of?
Traffic services.
And that's out of headquarters, is it?
Out of Cushman.
Very good, very good.
Services.
Do any board members have any questions of Brian at all, or any comments? Chair Castle.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your activity in Lebanon? What did you see and what did you experience?
It's a very unique country. So Lebanon is the most North American, European, Middle East country. So there's a large number of countries that have players there. It's half Christian, half Muslim, so it's very easy to work. Beautiful country. The food, I got very used to it, and actually have missed part of it, which is part of the weight loss. But great people, very friendly, very outgoing, very unique environment. It's much like British Columbia. When at the ocean front, very green. It's probably the greenest of the Middle East countries. You hit the first mountain range. Once you get over that, it's much like Niagara. It's where mostly they do all their farming. The second mountain range, and then it becomes desert. So you can go through all three different environments. The Lebanese Armed Forces were very welcoming to us. We built a lot of partnership and friendships with them, and it made the tour and then the next rotation that took over for me even easier to work with them. But it was a very rewarding operation to go on. So.
Congratulations and thank you again for your service.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hit that button if you don't mind. Chief.
So on this theme of recognizing our people, on August 26, 2018, at the annual International Association of Women Police Conference in Calgary, Alberta, Superintendent Cindy White received the prestigious Excellence in Performance Award, which is an international award amongst her peers all around the world. So that's an incredible honor for her to have been recognized. During her 32-year career, Superintendent White has had a profound impact in fostering positive relationships with the Niagara Regional Police Service and our community. As the commanding officer of the Professional Standards Unit, she championed the Stay in the Game program in response to an increase in police misconduct cases within the Niagara Regional Police Service. This initiative has resulted in a decline in police complaints while reinforcing expectations that officers conduct themselves in a professional and ethical manner, both on and off duty. In 2014, as co-chair of the Niagara Regional Police Service Diversity Committee, Superintendent White developed the first ever diversity plan, highlighting the Niagara Regional Police Service intrinsic values of respect, inclusivity as essential elements in the delivery of bias-free policing. She has also worked collaboratively with the Canadian Mental Health Association and the Niagara Health System to implement a mobile crisis rapid response team. The Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team has resulted in a marked decline in the number of mental health apprehensions and has significantly eased the burden on both police and hospital resources. For all of those and many, many more accomplishments, I was incredibly proud. As we know, Cindy was involved in a horrific bicycle accident earlier this year and wasn't able to travel to Calgary, but I was incredibly honored to attend and receive the award for her. And I have it here, and I'm happy to present that to her.
Cindy, would you mind coming up wherever you are? There. Oh, right there.
Oh, I think Ken wants to take a picture. Put your plaque. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you for traveling out to Calgary and getting it for me. Very much appreciated. I would like to actually begin by thanking the service. I've had some great opportunities over the years, and it's been tremendous. If you hear some hooting or hollering in the background, that would be my two sisters who are here. The one is quite vocal.
Cindy, bring him up. Come on up. If you're going to hoot and holler, you're coming up. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Please come up here. This is your sister. You want to come up and stand beside your sister?
Come on.
We do this, by the way. Cindy, please introduce them and where they're from.
This is my sister Brenda Merle, and Port Colborne, and my sister Donna Fallon, also from Port Colborne.
I'm the vocal one.
Do you have any comments about your sister right now before you go back to sit down?
I'll start crying, so I'll...
Do you want us to tell us any bad things? Thank you for coming out. Go ahead, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you. I think of particular importance to me is to thank my parents who couldn't be here today. Today is their 69th wedding anniversary. Yes, 69th wedding anniversary today. For all of their kids, they focused on developing certain values in us. And in particular, my mother, I would say the importance of family. In our home, I would say she raised a small village of people. Only 4 were her own children, but the house was full of children. And my father for community. My father was for many years a member of municipal council in Port Colborne and regional council. And I can remember as I was growing up, many a phone call at 3 in the morning from constituents where perhaps their house had flooded, sewers backed up or whatever, and he was out the door helping them. And thank you. Those values are incredible to have, and probably the most significant is commitment. The word commitment is huge in our house. Commitment about everything, even to the extreme, biking, running. But we're all like that, and it's a great value to have. So thank you.
No, Cindy, please. So it goes without saying, we were proud of you before, we're proud of you now, and we're happy that you're survived from your injuries from that,
Thank you.
That bike accident. Does anybody from the board have any comments or questions for Cindy? Al, again, go ahead.
Just about the bike incident, what happened?
Oh, I was riding my bike to work, and I was struck from the rear by a vehicle.
Oh, no, sorry to hear that, but congratulations.
Thank you.
So Cindy, your parents, 69 years, where do they live?
They live in Port Colborne.
Wow. We
Yes.
should be giving another honor next time for that. Cindy, thank you very much, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for bringing your sisters with you.
Thank you.
Hey. Chief.
Thanks very much. I'll continue on. I just wanted to provide an update to the board with regards to the shooting that occurred in downtown St. Catharines last weekend. As you know, this is the second shooting in the downtown area in the last several weeks. I certainly understand that the residents are concerned. What I can tell you is that we are investigating this incident fully. We have dedicated extensive resources while gathering a team of detectives to fully investigate this incident and identify the persons responsible and bring those persons to justice. The officers are continuing to review evidence and follow up on any and all leads in an effort to identify the suspects. What I want to reiterate to the community is that these are isolated incidents and at this point do not appear to be connected in any way. It's concerning, and that we certainly can't deny. It was a busy weekend in the downtown core, and we had an influx of people in the area for the wine festival as well as the Brock homecoming. With that influx of residents, we also we had additional resources in the area, additional officers on special duty assignments and on noise patrol. This is not an incident that took us by surprise. We were, by that I mean we had the ability to quickly respond to the incident, and we did. Unfortunately, in the current day and age, we need to be prepared for seemingly senseless and violent criminal acts, and we were. My officers and civilian members in our communications unit reacted quickly in the immediate aftermath of the shooting to ensure public safety, to preserve life, and to preserve evidence. I'm incredibly proud of their efforts on that particular evening, as I am on all evenings throughout the year. As we've seen, these incidents are not isolated to simply the Niagara region. They are occurring elsewhere throughout the province and across the country, unfortunately. When it comes to community policing, there are layers to our approach: proactive, responsive, protective, and investigative. Our officers are involved in proactive measures on a daily basis, getting out of their cruisers, interacting with business owners and residents. They make every effort to have a visible presence in all areas of the community, but especially in the downtown core of St. Catharines. Getting back to the community policing and walking the beat is a priority for our members, and Inspector John Sawicki, who is the district commander in St. Catharines, ensures that that takes place. We all understand the need to connect with residents and be visible in an effort to reduce crime while also identifying trends in various areas of our community. We take pride in hearing the concerns of our community and, wherever possible, addressing them. In this most recent shooting, we know that the likelihood is that someone knows something, and while I can't speak to the specifics of the investigation as it unfolds, in instances such as this, there is often limited cooperation, and that, no doubt, is an investigative hurdle. We encourage all residents to take ownership of their community and to come forward if they have information. If they're not comfortable speaking directly with my investigators, I encourage them to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS, which is secure and it's anonymous. The big question that I'm sure the board wants to know and what the community wants to know is our community safe? And I can tell you that these are two isolated incidents and are certainly not an indicative of spike in violence. While drugs, specifically opioid use in our community, is a concern, we are actively working with community partners in both an enforcement and proactive role. This is an issue we need community cooperation on. A singular enforcement approach or arresting our way out of this situation is not a solution. We have and we will continue to work collaboratively with all city, region, and social service agency partners to cultivate an approach that is well-rounded and it takes into consideration the interests of residents and business owners while also balancing the rights of community members that are coping with addiction issues, mental health issues, poverty issues, homelessness issues, and mental health issues. It's a complex issue that's going on in downtown St. Catharines right now, but we are working and committed to working with our community partners.
Chief, if you don't mind, I know you have more to say, but this is a big issue. I'd like to open it up for questions on this issue right now, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Board members. Board Member Castlin.
Thank you, Chair. And Chief, could you tell us about your presentation to St. Catharines City Council?
So on Monday evening, Mayor Sendzik invited myself and Deputy Chief Flynn to attend and address council and do our best to try and update them as best we could without divulging or compromising the investigation, but to reassure the public again that St. Catharines remains a safe community and the Niagara region remains a safe community. But these are isolated incidents, and as we've seen in the media, these types of incidents are occurring elsewhere in the province. And you know, we were optimistic and hopeful that those incidents wouldn't come to Niagara, but unfortunately, we have seen a couple of incidents.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that, and thank you for updating the St. Catharines residents through the St. Catharines Council. It's obvious that you've put a lot of effort into this investigation. I see the pictures on social media. The discussion at the water coolers is everywhere. I'm hopeful that a lead comes forward that makes sense and gives you the direction that you need. But I want to applaud the effort that you put forward in not only addressing the crime and putting the appropriate resources to it, but also addressing the community and making sure that there's a full understanding of everything that's going on that you can divulge and making sure that they're feeling safe. So thank you for that.
Any other comments of the chief on this issue? Okay, I have some. Chief, that night that happened in St. Catharines, I know we were talking back and forth many times, and the biggest fear you and I both have is that people will think this is happening all around the region, that it's not a one-off on this. And when we hired you, or promoted you to chief, when we promoted these deputy chiefs, community was number one. We said you have to get out and park the cruisers, you have to get out and meet the people, you have to stop in and see the business owners and say, or citizens and say what's up in your neighborhood, because we need the community to survive on this. And we went after the police as a board saying, get out in the community. Now you've proven that. I've gotten compliments from different mayors saying that we see cruisers now stopped in front of stores, getting out, walking around, and I'm proud of you guys for doing this. And the service and our board members are bringing that to task. But now I'm not proud of the community. It's time for the community to step up on this type of thing. And somebody knows somebody that was involved in this shooting, be it the most recent one on St. Paul Street at whatever it was, Queen, or the one that afternoon that we first thought there was a few gunmen and things like this. People know things, but they might be scared to come out and tell us or give us some leads on this. And it's not like reporting a speeder or an impaired driver, which are both bad in themselves. But this is more serious than that. So I'm pleading for the citizens to turn in the people that did this. Because if we can't have the community support us, what's the point of talking to the community on these things? And I'm not blaming I'm not picking on everybody here, but I'm certainly picking on the community for this because somebody knows somebody out there or knows something out there that can help lead to an arrest in this case and stop these things from happening, and this is throughout the province. If I'm speaking out of line, then damn me for doing it, but this is the way it should be, because we've spent too much time talking about our cruisers and that, getting on talking to the community, so community come to our assistance, please. The other thing is the CCTVs cameras that we have in St. Catharines, and I know we brought this up for a few years about we should have more cameras in Niagara Falls, Clifton Hill, Niagara Parks, downtown Niagara Lake by the church tower or whatever, the clock tower, and that. If we can get some of these things around, and I understand there's privacy acts and things like this, but some of these things are the right things to have, because when there's a crime, we might catch that vehicle going past it later, or that. This will solve some of these things. And I understand we all defend our rights on these things, but this solves a lot of things. A lot of things have been solved in St. Catharines because I believe it was an experimental thing with the CCTV cameras. And please.
I can speak to that. So I can advise that the CCTV camera footage was very, very helpful to our investigators in this investigation. So in the downtown core of St. Catharines, I believe there are 14, I think 14 cameras. Akram can, 26 cameras. And they provided very, very helpful coverage with regards to the actions of the suspect before the incident and after the incident. And I can also indicate that there was a firearm that was discarded in the downtown area, which we have recovered. So again, the firearm we believe that was used in the incident is no longer on the street. So that's a positive that's resulted from it.
So thank you for that. And how many CCTV cameras do we have outside of St. Catharines?
So we don't have any in the other municipalities. We're working currently with the city of Niagara Falls, and you know, obviously we're willing to work with any of the communities with regards to that. We have our new real-time operations center, which can serve as a hub for all of those cameras to come into our real-time operations center. We can't, because of privacy legislation, we can't actively monitor those cameras, but they can be used as an investigative tool following an incident to assist us in getting that information almost in real time out to our investigators and officers on the front line.
So thank you for that. So the privacy legislation, I understand the goodness of it and the reasons for it, but there's some things that when you're in a major intersection, and I'll use Table Rock for the Niagara Parks, or anywhere of those places, people expect to be protected on these things. And you might give up a little bit of privacy, and this is me speaking, this is not being endorsed by you, but we have to get these CCTV cameras around the region at certain spots, not on little residential streets and that, but it helps us so much in this, because we rely on business owners to go to their cameras on some crimes and that, and maybe I shouldn't be divulging this, but I know they've come to my daughter's gas stations and things like this to see what happened around and that. So I hope that we can challenge, the province will do something. If the press picks up anything here on what I've just said, I hope it's that we're pleading for the public to help us on these arrests. And we hope that we can get something going about these CCTV cameras to make us more safe on it.
I think it also speaks to the brazenness of the actions of some of the individuals who are inclined to do these senseless acts of violence. I can tell you that the downtown area of St. Catharines on that particular evening was flooded with police officers. So that, again, that speaks to some of the individuals and what they're prepared to do, I guess. But again, it's a very, very small segment of the population that are involved in these types of incidents, and I compliment our officers in their response to this incident.
And I thank you, because those are our kids going to university there. That was the Guelph Brock University night of the hockey game, wasn't it? Boy, you know, I've said enough on this. Any other comments to the chief on that point? Go. Oh, Member Ganzel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just to follow along on that, I think the CCTV cameras are excellent, and I would hope that Niagara Lake at some point in time early implements them on Queen Street. I know there is a real estate firm on Queen Street that I think has a camera pointed at the cenotaph. I can't remember if it was up or down anymore, but Obviously, ones that are feeding directly back into our real-time operations center, which would be vital for our law enforcement issues and crime prevention, I think is something that we need to, as a town, be moving forward on. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Up to you, Chief. Thank you.
So unless there are any further questions on that, I'll proceed with my, I'm just going to give an update on the Cops for Cancer. If you wanted to start the video. So as was widely publicized, we engaged on a Cops for Cancer initiative, largely due to Deputy Bill 40, and this initiative was something that has been widely accepted and has been going on for years in out west. And it was one of the first things that Deputy 40 brought forward to me as a request. Is this something that we could embark on here in Niagara? Talk to me about it, and it was not a tough sell, let me tell you. It was about raising awareness and raising money for pediatric cancer research, a tremendous partnership that we had with the Canadian Cancer Society. There were 28 riders for our Cops for Cancer journey that went from, it was called the Tour de Golden Horseshoe, which went from September the 18th to the 21st. Tremendous community engagement. The officers attended 23 schools. The money is still coming in, but well over $175,000 was raised for pediatric cancer research. Tremendous cause, and I'll turn it over to Deputy 40 for his comments, but I participated in the final leg, and I certainly didn't do the 400 kilometers that the rest of the riders did, but for the small portion that I was involved in, incredibly impactful, and I think Deputy 40 can speak a little bit further about that.
Thanks, Chief. It doesn't seem that long ago that the Chief brought this proposal to the board seeking your support, and which we received, so I thank you for that. I think that was probably March or April that we came forward looking for your support. The focus of this, of course, was the ride to raise money for pediatric cancer research, but I think I would be remiss if I did not reference probably the other 20 or so community engagement and fundraising initiatives that we embarked upon as a team. Every person that was engaged in this, not only the riders, but the support team, to get out in the community, to engage them in a really positive way, and to raise money for a really significant cause that the Chief referenced, pediatric cancer research. I have a list of some of them that if you don't mind, I would reference. And in every one of these, we received monies. So I thank the men and women of our service that were volunteering their time. Sorry, not only our service, but the RCMP, Meridian Credit Union, Dominion Securities, of course, Chair Caslin was on his bike with us, and so some of the events are as follows. A pasta night at Chip and Charlie's that was coordinated through our office. A head shave at the Great Wolf Lodge where Deputy Flynn, the Chief, Member Caslin, myself, and some others shaved our heads to raise money. And the Great Wolf Lodge was a tremendous partner. Canal Days, in Port Colborne, we had a team of people out down there engaging the community. Blue Rodeo was supportive and signed a guitar that we raffled off. Superintendent Ash, I would be remiss if I didn't comment on his significant efforts in helping advance this as well through his tremendous network across the region of people. Caged for Cancer, we had members on Clifton Hill that were literally caged for the entire evening engaging tourists as they came into our community to raise monies for this initiative. A charity checkout at Sobeys over the long Labor Day weekend. Cuffs on Cancer at Front Row Sports, where we handcuffed some local celebrities, including Chair Gale and Matt Parnell, and the folks at Front Row Sports and Thorold were just tremendous partners. The RCMP hosted a golf tournament. We had barbecues at Fortino's. We had barbecues at Zares in Welland. Josie led a Zumbathon where she had a number of people out from the community doing Zumba. I confess that none of us attended. We probably should have, but it was a really awesome. No, it would have been not pretty. Not pretty.
What is Zumba? Sorry, I don't. Okay.
I would ask her to demonstrate, but it's probably hard in uniform. The car show in Port Colborne, the market in Port Colborne. First Ontario employees also had a head shave at Empty Bellies, right? We had a head shave there where a number of our riders also shaved their heads, and then we had probably another half a dozen riders shave their heads at Meridian to raise monies, additional monies. Yeah, thanks, Chief. And I'll provide, the Chief just asked that we provide some background around kind of the origin of it again. Some of our riders' children had lemonade stands. I know Karina Caldwell comes up as somebody. So, and then, of course, Member Caslin donated significant monies from his tournament to our initiative. So, all in all, a tremendous opportunity for our people to volunteer, get out in the community. Not forgetting that the men and women back at the service are taking the calls for service and responding to, emerging pressures across the region. I have to say, probably the most difficult day of the ride was the final day when we were here in, of course, Niagara on the Lake, and we left Crossroads, and boy, oh boy, that was the day of the headwinds, and everybody persevered. My concern the last day, to be frank, was just to ensure that we crossed the finish line as a team. I was very proud of our efforts, but I wanted everybody home safely, and we were able to do that with the support of our traffic services. They were just exceptional. They really were a privilege to work with. And in terms of the background and the origin of Cops for Cancer, about, 23 years ago, there was a young boy in Edmonton by the name of Lyle, and he was undergoing chemotherapy to work through his cancer. And as a result of that, he lost his hair. He went to school, and he was subject of bullying. An Edmonton police officer learned of this, and in an effort to show support for Lyle, he and a number of other police officers shaved their heads. They went to the school to demonstrate that being bald was cool, or it was okay for this young Lyle. Flowing out of that, the initiative moved to British Columbia, where, as the Chief referenced, there are now 4 cycling tours there that they themselves are the largest fundraiser in the country for pediatric cancer research. In other words, they're saving lives with the monies that they generate. So, as the Chief referenced, I discussed this initiative with him. I'd be remiss if it would have been easy for him to say no. We're already engaged in a lot of initiatives. I'm new in my job. I'm still, learning. So, had it not been for his support and then his encouraging us to come to the board, I don't think we'd be here. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. And then I think I would also be remiss if I didn't comment on the support we received from the Hamilton Police Service. They came out to our events, and on the final day, the Halton Police Service came out and actually rode with us because of their interest in this initiative. My hope is that we can take this initiative, that our service can lead this across the province We are engaging now. Other police departments are reaching out. As recently as Monday night, I spoke with the deputy chief of another large municipal department in the general Toronto area, Greater Toronto area. So I think we have momentum. I think it was a positive event. The men and women that participated in this were selfless with their time, and they're I'm very proud of them. I guess I don't know what else I can say. You know, inclusive of, you know, Deputy Flynn, Brian Ash, Marco, Tara, everybody, and behind the scenes people like Lisa as an example, bringing our equipment and our luggage to the hotel at 6 in the morning and again at, you know, the end of the day. So all around a team effort. It really was, you know, the chief acknowledged me, but had it not been for the other 60 people that were a part of this, it wouldn't have happened. So just a team effort in its totality. I'll stop there because I could talk all day.
I'm sure Member Caslin, who I understand you had to push up the hills and things like this, might have a few comments.
Well, thank you. And one of the things that Deputy Forty did not mention is the beads. These are, do you want to talk about them? These are courage beads that are given to cancer patients when they undergo specific treatments and or milestones, and so we replicate that ourselves. And you can see it's got my name on it. But one of the beads I got was because it was hurtful. It was because I was the oldest rider on the tour. They gave me this antique jug bead. But it was all in fun, and we had, I can tell you, great bonding with the team and the support workers and the people who supported us every night. The head shaves were indicative of the child losing his hair, and that's the connection between the two. And through that, we raised a lot of funds. But I can tell you it was a life-changing experience riding. 416 is what the actual total on my odometer was, 416 kilometers in 4 days. The first day was the toughest, I can tell you that. After that, it seemed to get easier, although by the end of the week, my body was a wreck. And the fact that we still made it home into the wind, all the way from Fort George, went to the furthest point of Niagara, Fort George, all the way back to Montebello Park, into sometimes 100-kilometer-an-hour wind. It was slow and it was hot, but we did it together, and I don't think there was, well, I'm sure there was a few nasty words being said from the back, but that was to be expected with the challenges that we faced. But all in all, the community was definitely engaged on every stop. We stopped at, I'm going to suggest, about 25 schools. I don't know the exact number, but about 25 schools, and went into the gymnasiums and talked to the students, right from kindergarten all the way up. And sometimes we went into high schools, and we got to send a message of cancer awareness, eating healthy, leading a healthy life, exercising, all part of a community engagement. We were received very, very well everywhere we went. The screams and the cheers, it was great. It was great, and being together as a team made it that much stronger. That we were all dressed the same. You can see in the photographs, if you have a view of the screen, we're all dressed the same in these bright, bright colors, which definitely made a difference and an impact when we were driving down the street. And we had people everywhere we went were cheering us on. Whether they knew what we were doing or not, I can tell you they definitely know now, because the social media was exploding as well. So all in all, a fantastic experience for me. And I want to thank the service for including me as part of the team, as one of the riders, an experience I'll never forget. Thank you.
So again, we're all proud of you. I'll come back to you in a second, Chief, but I can just imagine how Ken Divers and Cindy White were itching to be out there, but you couldn't. Okay? So I thank you again, and another set of applause. Chief?
Thanks very much. I'll continue on with sort of the operational component of my report. So with regards to homicides, the stats cover a 2-month period because we didn't meet in the month of August, but from July to September, we did not have any homicides. So that brings, or that total for 2018 remains at 2 homicides. Comparatively, we had 3 homicides in 2017, 1 homicide in 2016, and 6 homicides in 2015. During the reporting period, there were 2 fatal collisions in the region and 3 life-threatening motor vehicle collisions in July. And in the month of August, there was 1 fatal collision and 3 life-threatening motor vehicle collisions. So to date, we have had 13 fatal collisions in 2018. Comparatively, in 17, we had 18 for the entire year, and in 2016, we had 20 fatal collisions. I'll talk a little bit about a couple of the fatal collisions. So on Monday, July 23rd, at approximately 1:11 p.m., officers responded to reports of a multi-vehicle collision in the area of 271 Mountain Road in Grimsby. Initial investigation showed that a 2007 Chevrolet Cobalt was being driven northbound on Mountain Road when the 32-year-old female resident of West Lincoln traveled into the southbound lane and collided head-on with a 2009 Pontiac Montana that was being operated by a 67-year-old male from Fergus. A third vehicle, a 2017 Volkswagen Jetta, being driven by a 50-year-old West Lincoln female, was also southbound on Mountain Road behind the Pontiac and collided with the Pontiac after the initial collision. The female driver of the Chevrolet suffered fatal injuries and was pronounced at the scene. A 13-year-old male passenger had to be extricated by fire services. He was airlifted to an out-of-town hospital in serious condition. The driver of the Pontiac suffered serious injuries while his 76-year-old female passenger suffered minor injuries. Both were transported to an out-of-town hospital by ambulance. The driver of the Volkswagen suffered minor injuries while her 3 passengers were uninjured, and that collision remains under investigation by our traffic services, which Constable Brian James, earlier you met, that's where he works out of. On Friday, August 10th, at approximately 6:54, officers responded to reports of a motorcycle versus a motorcycle collision on Bunting Road near Dieppe Road in St. Catharines. Investigation revealed that a 2004 Yamaha motorcycle was traveling at a high rate of speed northbound on Bunting Road. The 29-year-old male rider failed to stop for a red light at the intersection of Dieppe Road, and he collided with a 2009 Toyota Corolla being driven by a 27-year-old female from St. Catharines. The male rider of the Yamaha suffered fatal injuries and was pronounced at the scene. Driver of the Toyota suffered minor injuries, and that collision also remains under investigation. Some incidents in the news. During the month of July, the Niagara Regional Police Service and the town of Fort Erie have been receiving increased number of complaints regarding behavior on the beaches of Lake Erie and Crystal Beach. Reports had come forward regarding rowdy behavior, open alcohol, and public drunkenness. In an effort to ensure a family-friendly environment on the public beaches, the Niagara Regional Police Service, in conjunction with the town of Fort Erie, conducted increased police presence on the beaches on the days and weekends that followed. 5 District Fort Erie officers were conducting foot patrols, bike and ATV patrols in the area, and members of the public engaged in any unlawful behavior were subject to education, counseling, and enforcement under the bylaws and provincial offenses. With regards to the Hamilton Paramedic Services investigation, following a 7-month investigation, charges have now been laid against 2 Hamilton paramedics. As you recall, on December 20th, 2017, the Hamilton Police Service, in the spirit of transparency and to avoid a perceived conflict of interest, requested that the Niagara Regional Police Service conduct an independent investigation into the paramedic care received by 19-year-old Yosef Al-Haznawi, who is a victim of a homicide. Mr. Al-Haznawi died on December 2nd, 2017, after coming to the aid of an older man who had been harassed by two males on Sanford Avenue near Main Street East in the city of Hamilton. Dale Berginski King and James Matheson have been charged by the Hamilton Police Service in connection with the death of Mr. Al-Hasnawi. A team of investigators brought together from across the Niagara Regional Police Service to conduct the investigation into the actions of the attending paramedics. And as a result of that investigation, on Wednesday, August 1st, investigators arrested and charged two Hamilton paramedics with the alleged offense of failing to provide the necessaries of life, contrary to Section 215 of the Criminal Code. On the 8th anniversary of her death, Niagara Regional Police detectives are appealing to members of the community for information following the homicide of 76-year-old Livia Burns. At 8:50 p.m. on August 4th, 2010, emergency crews were called to a home at 11 Oakwood Avenue in the city of St. Catharines over the report of a structure fire. Neighbors attempted to help ahead of the arrival of Officer Burns. Could be heard shouting for help from the basement of the home, unable to escape as she had been tied up. Burns was located by firefighters, but had unfortunately succumbed to her injuries in hospital the following day. Detectives are appealing to members of the community who may have information to come forward. Again, this is that community partnership that we talk about, and it's so important. We believe that somebody somewhere has information that can assist our investigators, and we would really, really like to do everything we can to solve this crime. It was a heinous, heinous crime. On Saturday, August 4th, 2018, members of the Niagara Regional Police Traffic Enforcement Unit attended the City of Port Colborne to conduct ride checkpoints during Canal Days, Marine and Heritage Festival. Officers arrived in Port Colborne and set up a checkpoint by 7:30. By just after 8 p.m., two drivers had been stopped and arrested after they provided samples of their breath for analysis. It was determined they were over the legal limit. One of the drivers was operating a motorcycle with a fake cardboard license plate, and further investigation revealed that he was also a disqualified driver. Throughout the rest of the evening, officers at the ride checkpoint stopped approximately 500 vehicles. In addition to the criminal driving offenses, officers also issued 8 traffic offenses for various Highway Traffic Act offenses. Elsewhere in the region, officers were busy making other impaired driving arrests. In the 4 hours preceding 8:30 p.m., an additional 4 drivers were arrested for impaired driving offenses, including one driver that was arrested and charged for impaired driving by drug. I want to assure the public that we remain committed to reducing impaired driving offenses through education and the apprehension of offenders through enforcement programs like RIDE. Impaired driving is still the leading criminal offense causing deaths in Canada, and especially with the cannabis legislation that will come into effect on October 17th. Obviously, this will continue to remain a priority for us. I just wanted to highlight some work in regards to the illegal transportation industry. The Niagara Regional Police Service Bylaw Enforcement and Licensing Unit continues to be actively involved in investigations relating to illegal personal transportation industry throughout the region. During the summer months, officers continued targeted enforcement of the industry, and as a result of the recent initiative, a total of 12 charges were laid under the Highway Traffic Act. Drivers that were charged were identified as working for the following illegal transportation companies: Driven, Zoom Zoom, Original Delivery, Tip Top Carpool and Delivery, My Ride, and Fort Erie Speedy. Illegal transportation services have been known to be involved in the criminal subculture, and the Niagara Regional Police Service remains committed to public safety and reminds residents to take precautions to ensure the transportation they use is from a properly licensed company. Our Back to School Traffic Safety and Awareness Day that occurred on Tuesday, September 4th, which was the 18th annual Back to School Traffic Safety and Awareness Day. And it always coincides with the first day of school for the majority of the children, at least in the Niagara region. officers attended dozens of schools in Niagara and focused their attention on the safety of the crossing guards, the students in crosswalks, drivers who had disobeyed stop school buses, and vehicles that were speeding in school zones. Each year, senior officers and those who work in specialty units who are not regularly assigned to uniform patrol duties don their uniforms and take to the streets to conduct traffic enforcement. In addition to the General Uniform Patrol, another 50-plus officers, including one from CN Police, took part in this initiative. Feedback from the officers participating in the project, many reported that the majority of the motorists were driving appropriately in the school zones. However, there were still approximately 110 drivers that were stopped and charged or issued warnings for various offenses. In total, 83 tickets were issued and 55 warnings were handed out. Of those tickets that were issued, 46 were for speeding, 3 were for distracted driving, and 5 for not wearing a seatbelt, along with 29 other various provincial offenses. Just with regards to the Burgoyne Bridge replacement project, in February 2017, the Niagara Regional Police requested the OPP investigation to investigate the criminal wrongdoing involving the Burgoyne Bridge replacement project. Members of the OPP anti-rackets branch, led by a major case manager of the criminal investigation branch, conducted an investigation and have concluded there is no evidence of criminal wrongdoing with respect to the project or any other matters that were brought forward in the Deloitte report. Just want to thank the OPP for their assistance. They devoted thousands of hours to that investigation, and we thank them for their cooperation on that. Project Bike Swipe. 22 individuals are facing a total of 46 charges, with over 43 bicycles recovered as part of project. That's easy for others to say, apparently not easy for me to say. Project Bike Swipe, a targeted enforcement and education initiative in the city of Niagara Falls. Got to talk to Inspector McCaffrey about coming up with an easier name to say. In June of 2018, the 2-district street crime unit, with the assistance of frontline officers, dedicated resources to patrolling known locations of bike thefts, while also working to educate residents and local business owners to prevent theft, in an effort to take a proactive approach to this problem. The project identified 5 people involved in high-end bike thefts, which resulted in a search warrant being executed on August 30th, which recovered 5 bicycles with a combined value of over $28,000. All 5 are facing multiple theft and possession of stolen property charges, along with conspiracy to commit indictable offense charges. Detectives continue to ask residents to be vigilant in locking up their valuables, and they ask hotel owners, campground operators, and merchants in the area to remind out-of-town visitors who may have materials secured to their vehicles to store them in a secure location, such as their hotel room. And that concludes my portion for the public part anyways. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any questions? Member Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Chief, thank you so much for the update this morning. I want to take the opportunity to thank Staff Sergeant Rob LaPlante as well as Deputy Chief Brett Flynn for their attendance at a Port Colborne Council meeting a couple of weeks ago with respect to a presentation that was made there surrounding requests from the city to arrive to talk about some of the vandalism, mischief issues that have been occurring in Port Colborne in particular. There's been additional media attention related to some of those items recently as well. And I think they did a tremendous job. I just wanted to ask what the service has been doing since then, that's about two and a half weeks ago or so, to this point, in terms of addressing the concerns in the community on that front. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn to Deputy Flynn, who can speak to what's been going on in Port Colborne. Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. It was September 10th that Staff Sergeant LaPlante and I attended City Council. In total, I think there was about 15 speakers that day, some very complimentary in terms of what they felt the police were doing, but certainly others who saw things that the police weren't seeing in their community, the times of day, the things that they noticed as residents of the downtown area. So I can tell you that since then, well, in fact, today, Staff Sergeant LaPlante has a meeting with representatives from the city, as well as local stakeholders, downtown business owners, and together they're working to help inform us on ways that we can better position ourselves through increased foot patrol, proper location of our vehicles at certain times of day to detect some of the things that they're seeing in their own city. I think on a very basic level, and it's something, Mr. Chair, that you've mentioned today and something the Chief has, obviously the importance of communication between ourselves, between the police service, and between the residents in any city. We did hear from a few members of the community that got up and talked about some of the things they saw happen, but then also said that they don't call the police. That's an issue because we're not mind readers. Certainly other people did call us and are frustrated by the number of times that they've experienced the same sort of crimes in their community, and we hear them. But on a very basic level, it's about intelligence-led policing, and that intelligence is what our community is telling us, where it's happening, when it's happening, and we'll try and respond as best as we can to deal with those issues. To a great degree, the residents felt and the business owners felt that it was a relatively small number of people who were active in their community and committing crimes. And we also did have that opportunity during the evening to talk about some of the issues that really are outside a police services control, and it's about some of the impacts of poverty in our community and of homelessness and some of the other things that are happening. But certainly we're a partner, in the community, and we'll do our part. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Deputy, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chief.
Just as well, I realize that sometimes for a variety of reasons, life gets busy for people and they may not have time to devote to calling an officer over to their house or to take that information. But there is the option of our online reporting, which is on our www.niagarapolice.ca. There is a link on the webpage where members of the public can really pretty seamlessly file a report, and it really helps us in knowing A, what's going on in the community, and B, allow our district commanders like Inspector McCaffrey, who's here today, to really allocate resources to a problem area that we become aware of. So I just wanted to provide that info.
Thank you, Chief. And Deputy Flynn, we represent the community, as you know. The Police Service Board is the community. You're the service. And I had heard some comments afterwards. I'm not on Twitter, but I had copies sent to me of some people out there at the meeting or around the meeting that said they questioned the police's stats and facts about this. Well, if people think we spend a lot of money on facts, we're right, we're correct. And for somebody to make that insinuation makes it look like we're inefficient and things like this. If people don't report things like you said, then we can't do anything about it. But your facts are right. If anybody wants to challenge them, show us the proof. But if not, I apologize for those type of comments because we're a pretty efficient organization. And please pass along my thanks to Staff Sergeant LaPlante for being there. I think he's fairly new at Port Colborne, and welcome to being a Staff Sergeant in charge of a detachment. But thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Barrick.
Thank you, Chair. This is a follow-up to both your comments as well as the Chief and the Deputy Chiefs. I think the takeaway message is the communication component. I was at the meeting as well, and we heard a few people state that they were posting incidents that may or may not have occurred on social media, so Twitter or Facebook, and openly acknowledged that they did not inform the police, and then followed up by saying, well, your stats are wrong. Well, the police are showing stats of what is being reported to the police, not as what is being monitored online and social media and that. So it is absolutely critical takeaway message that even if they get a sense that, if I call the police, it doesn't matter anyway, so I'm just going to put it online, but also call the police because they can track and we can track all the stats. And if the trending is going upwards, then we know we have to add more resources there. The irony was that evening, was it was demonstrated that the actual numbers were trending downward. And so there was a kind of perceived dichotomy of what is being felt in the community versus what the stats are. And I think that's what the kind of the commentary was around your point. So yeah, call us, call the police service, not just post it online. Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you very much, Chief. In my haste at the start and not having the design of this board, I forgot to introduce Deb Reed, who is our executive director. She is the brains of our outfit, and I say that, and I mean it. The brains of our outfit. Deb's been around for a long time, so Deb, thank you for this. And Don, who is in staff, sitting in the back there. If anyone here that has just come in and wants to speak, please see Don. Don, just throw your hand up so they know you're there, please, and we'll have you up. So our next part is presentations. This will be the Niagara on the Lake issue. This will be Inspector Jim McCaffrey coming up, please. And I'd like to have a mover and seconder to put this on. This is local policing issues for the town of Niagara Lake. Mover is Member Caslin, a seconder, Member Stewart. Inspector McCaffrey, welcome. And you have the floor, sir. After Inspector McCaffrey is done, we will allow anybody to make questions. I'll go by Don's list as to who goes first and any comments you have. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Inspector Jim McCaffrey. First, let me take a step back. Chief, deputies, senior staff, Mr. Mayor, board members, and those attendants in the gallery today. Good morning. My name is Inspector Jim McCaffrey, the 2 district commander, as well as a proud 34-year member of the service. I report to Superintendent Cindy White, who reports to Deputy Chief Flynn. For those who don't know, the Niagara Falls, Casino, and Niagara Lake communities collectively are known as 2 district and are comprised of a contingent of frontline officers, detectives from our criminal investigation branch, as well as administrative staff. The 2 district office itself is open 24/7, 364 days of the year to serve the community. As you may or may not be aware, officers assigned to 2 district provide both frontline and investigative services to the citizens as the visitors to the town of Niagara on the Lake. Their efforts include being proactive as well as reactive in nature, targeting both community-based concerns as well as addressing a wide variety of calls for service, including priority response to active in-call incidents. Calls for Niagara on the Lake range from property-related offenses such as theft from vehicles, to more serious offenses such as motor vehicle collisions, domestic-related incidents, mental health events, and also provide assistance to other policing agencies and emergency responders partners. All incidents that require further investigation beyond frontline patrol are assigned to the 2 district detective office for investigation, which is comprised of 4 full-time team members of detective, each assigned to a specific platoon, as well as a team of detectives in street crime that investigate break-and enters, drug incidents, as well as many other occurrences. As well, we have the services of a crime analyst who reviews all occurrences and identifies trends or emerging issues to allow for a proactive response, as well as for a more efficient allocation of resources. Finally, in addition to the designated detectives in frontline, we also have a variety of specialty units in the police service that are available to serve the Niagara Lake community with specialized training in both investigative and operational support. These units include, but are not limited to, the Marine Unit, the Homicide Unit, Investigative Support Unit, Forensic Services, Traffic Reconstruction Unit, which I'll speak to briefly, but they have spent a significant amount of time in Niagara Lake over the past few years. Traffic Enforcement Unit, again, who spends a significant amount of time in the Niagara Lake region. Tactical Unit and Canine, and these are just to name a few of the services available to the citizens. Speaking first of frontline patrol, when determining the assignment of policing services and resources to a community, one of the many metrics that are used is number of calls for service. In this regard, Niagara Lake is in very good shape, with the number of calls being fairly low, particularly in comparison with other districts in the Niagara Regional Police Service. I have some stats here. I'll just speak to a couple to perhaps to show kind of comparators in the Niagara region where the calls for services are on a year-to-year basis. Grimsby, for instance, last year had 6,230 calls. Fort Erie had 4,885. Port Colborne, 4,153. Niagara Lake had 2,884. So based on these stats, you can see that Niagara Lake is at the lower end of spectrum for total calls for service, and are averaging approximately 2,000 to 3,000 calls per service a year. However, it's important to note that many resources come in to assist us to deal with those type of calls for service. Even though they are at the low end, there are some specific issues which we deal with in Niagara Lake, which I'll speak to briefly in a moment. Next, I wanted to first point out some of the specific type of calls for service that officers are most likely to respond to in Niagara Lake in a descending order. The call that Niagara Lake, of the last couple of years, the officers has responded to the most has been false alarms. Now, I know we have a new protocol in place which is going to reduce the numbers, and I don't think that's going to be going on a year-to-year basis going forward. After that, the highest call Niagara Lake officers attend to is motor vehicle collisions resulting in property damage. After that, we have driving complaints, which essentially is members of the public calling in to complain about what they might see going on in the streets, things involving vehicles. After that is information calls, which essentially is people calling in with any information they want to report to the police, which really doesn't fit a specific category. After that is theft. After that is alarms canceled, followed by motor vehicle collisions, which go to our collision reporting center, impaired drivers, welfare checks, and domestic violence. So based on those stats, you can see that motor vehicle collisions and traffic calls continue to be a challenge in Niagara Lake. As well, you also note that most major incidents such as robberies and assaults and other incidents of violence do not appear as prevalently in Niagara Lake as some of the other communities. Speaking first of motor vehicle collisions, a number of factors work into this equation, not the least of which the geographical area of Niagara Lake. The area comprising Niagara Lake District is unique in acreage and landscape, which means it can be sometimes take a little longer for officers to respond to calls for service and conduct follow-up investigations. Traffic complaints are a continuing concern in Niagara Lake due to the expansive road network comprising the area, a lot of back roads where the vehicles can really open up. To effectively address these concerns, as a district commander, I continue to insist that the mindset for Niagara Lake officers is to persistently monitor traffic concerns through enforcement. I'll speak to a number of initiatives we continue to be implemented by frontline officers to identify these concerns, some of which are continued LiDAR and radar patrols by members assigned to uniform patrol. Of note, since 2015, frontline officers have issued 6,642 provincial offense notices for various highway traffic infractions in the Niagara Lake area, with the overwhelming majority of those being for speeding offenses. Other initiatives include directed ride enforcement by the Niagara Regional Police Service Traffic Unit, which has resulted in repeated attendance in the Niagara Lake area. As recent as last weekend they were here, with over 40 roadside tests conducted and at least 4 arrests and 6 3-day suspension issued within the last couple of years. There are a number of directed initiatives which continue on. I'll speak to a couple of them. One includes extra enforcement in the area of community concerns. Examples include the recent new 4-way stop installed at 4 Mile Creek Road and Line 3 Road. Police conducted a safety initiative to educate the public to ensure the compliance with the new sign. After 5 hours, a total of 40 violators were stopped and either issued provincial offense notices or were educated about the new sign. Of note is that most of the violators were local residents. As well, another example includes a safety initiative with our traffic services unit, again in response to concerns from citizens, which resulted in the seizure of 6 exotic cars racing double the speed limit as part of the VIP car excursion, which came through Niagara Lake. These are only a sample of some of the traffic enforcement initiatives that will continue at all levels of 2 District, with traffic continuing to be a top priority in Niagara Lake. A further part of my role as District Commander is to act as a liaison between officers and the community to ensure concerns brought forward by the community, citizens' committees, or municipal council members are addressed promptly and that feedback is provided outlining our findings or reactive measures we have implemented to address their concerns. I'm very pleased to report the Niagara Regional Police Service has a very positive relationship with the Mayor's office, having personally known Lord Mayor Dart for many years through my family. It's a pleasure to work with him. With the assistance of the Mayor's office, recently we completed we negotiated a rather challenging protocol between the owners of the horse-drawn carriages in town here with a group of protesters, which we believe will allow for peaceful protest while ensuring businesses have the right to operate within the town. That continues on. In addition, our Niagara Lake officers continue to participate or have participated in a variety of community-related events, often with the assistance of a very motivated Niagara Lake Safety Committee, of which Chair Ganzel is an active member. Events include a number of Lock It or Lose It campaigns where Niagara Regional Police Service members, in conjunction with committee members, attend high-traffic vehicle locations and check parked vehicles to ensure they are locked and that no items of value are visible. This is in response to the number of vehicle entries that occur in Niagara Lake. Other initiatives include Police Week, Niagara Lake Santa Claus Parade, a number of child car seat clinics, and many more. We also have a member of my administrative staff who attends neighborhood safety committees in the Niagara and the Green Area community as well. These events collectively afford the community an opportunity to discover how police are working to keep the community safe and to foster strong ties with the residents that we serve. Through the implementation of all these initiatives, operational plans, and working closely with our community stakeholders, we will continue to respond to concerns to provide a level of safety and security for both the visitors and residents to this area. I'm quite confident that the officers assigned to Niagara Lake have a dedicated and genuine interest in their community. Through a collective approach with the community, city officials, and other emergency first responders, I feel we have enhanced the community safety and security within the town of Niagara Lake. I thank you for your interest and time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address them at this time.
Inspector McCaffrey, thank you very much, and I thank you for the last 3 years that we've known each other and challenging me on some of the things I've requested and going out and meeting people and things like this. So I'm going to open it first to Police Service Board members. Do you have any questions for Inspector McCaffrey? And Vice Chair Ganzel.
Thank you, Chair. And again, thank you to the inspector for his support of our Community Safety Committee here in town and the officers that are attending. One other point, the migrant farm worker bicycle safety, we'll call it a rodeo for a better term, which we put on every May. It's been going on, I think, for well over 30 years. And again, it brings a certain amount of safety to a number of people that are not normally residents of our area. Having lived here for 42 years as of October 1st, the community has changed, but I'm also pleased that over the years, our police service has also changed with the times. And I think through your leadership and through the chief and the two deputies, we're basically in lockstep with the various crime levels that we face in this community. It is the motor vehicle issues that you reported on, in that I see that in my only day-to-day drives through town. The concession and line roads are basically well open to speeder infringement, as I will refer to it as, and of course that's why we produced the bicycle safety map to try to identify issues that an 80-kilometer highway does not exactly suit 6 people riding abreast, counter to the HTA, but we see that on weekends. But again, a big thank you to your officers that are down here. If you also remember, May of last year, we held a big police open house at the community center, where we had officers from internally, drug enforcement, traffic safety. We had 2 hours of presentations on just about everything that takes place. A lot of arguments can be made. There's only 2 officers down here, and as the chief alluded to it, I always like to refer to it as the tip of an iceberg. It might be 2 here, but we're backed up by, we got 1,200 members. I know there was an incident in Virgil, I think last year. I think Superintendent Frayne was a duty officer that night. In conversation with him, we had the virtual area flooded with officers within 7 minutes. Again, impressive numbers, and it goes counter to this phobia that we hear in Niagara Lake of the 2 cars. No, it's more than that. It's a service that is there, it's responsive, and provides the services as required on a need basis, and we're there when the calls come in. So again, thank you.
Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I guess just to sort of build on what Member Ganzel said, you made reference in your unit to traffic enforcement, and I know we'll be using, let's call it, outside of District 2 resources. We have a traffic unit, and could you maybe elaborate a little bit about how the Marine unit, which of course serves the whole region, not just a district, supplements the work, especially focusing in the area of Niagara on the Lake?
Well, being this close to a border town, we often rely on the services of the Marine unit to assist us through any issues that occur on the water. And obviously the uniformed officers can't respond to that, so we rely heavily on the Marine unit on a regular basis to attend and assist us for any calls which come in the Niagara Lake area.
Thank you for that. I was aware, but I wanted the public to be aware of those various units that are, we consider them central and not front line, but they certainly move around where they're needed. Everything from, fraud and victim services, all of those things are region-wide, and I think we need to keep that in mind when we provide policing to an area that there's a tremendous amount of backup to the officers that are on the streets.
Okay, thank you for that. No other board members have any comments. So now we're going to open it up to the councillors first, and I have 3 people on the list here. I have Gary Zalepa, Jim Collard, and Janice Thompson to speak. Gary Zalepa, if you don't mind coming up. And grab the mic. Gary, I understand you're running for regional council in Niagara Lake? Yeah, so please press the button and go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I just wanted to thank the board for being here in town. And I found so far the proceeding to be very illuminating and informative. I appreciate being informed, and I hope the members of the public are paying attention, because being able to inform your police services of events that are happening in the town through the web is very important. So I'm pleased to hear that. I applaud the services and the inspector on work in Niagara on the Lake, and I'm really pleased to hear the board talking a lot about road safety, and that's what I'd like to ask a question about today. And it's one of the pressures, obviously, that we're feeling as a resident, and I can only speak from that point of view. And we've seen an increasing amount of traffic, as you know, locals and visitors, and many of the visitors are unaccustomed to our rural roads. And also, some are, as Vice Chair mentioned, perhaps ignoring some rules. And what I guess I'm getting at is, what other programs or initiatives could the town access to work with the Police Services Board to help further identify these locations in the community in Niagara Lake that are safety concerns? And then how could we then assist in working with the community and the Police Services Board to implement the solutions to make these roads safer? So that's my question, Mr. Chair.
So, Chief, I'm going to defer to you who you want to answer the question, if it's Inspector McCaffrey or yourself, whatever you wish.
I'll start off. I'll provide some information on what other communities have done with regards to traffic calming measures, whether it's through signage, whether it's through there are signs where it has radar incorporated into the sign that displays the speed that the motorist is traveling at. Anecdotally, those I think have a positive impact for the law-abiding citizens that sometimes forget, have a number of other things on their mind, and they don't realize that their speed has suddenly crept up, and they see that, and it's a self-correcting problem for them. I know that in Grimsby and some of the other communities, they post signs about being a high accident area and encourage motorists to slow down. So any of those partnerships, I would strongly encourage Inspector McCaffrey and Council to have that communication, and we're willing to cooperate. And I'll turn it over to Inspector McCaffrey, who may be able to top up on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I rely heavily on my crime analyst. If calls for service come in about a particular intersection, what I will do is I'll call the crime analyst to do an analysis of that particular area. And a lot of times it's determined that the public is not calling in about certain things. They may think we know about a certain intersection, but we may not. It's important for them to call in so that if one particular intersection is getting a lot of calls for service, I will allocate resources to it. I know as recent as this week, I received a number of complaints from the Niagara and the Green community. So I've got radar down there yesterday and today taking care of that issue to see exactly what the community is talking about. So it is important for them to call in with any concerns they have so that we can respond to these particular complaints in the best way we can.
Gary, I'm going to pile on an answer on that one too. We need the public to be innovative. If you see something like that, I had a lady send me a picture from Florida of an intersection that I sent to Ron Tripp at the region of a different interchange than that. But if there's innovative ideas throughout the world that we don't know about, we should get. One of the things that really comes out is the flashing speed limit signs. It wakes up everybody. Everybody in this room knows when you're going down a street and something starts flashing at you saying your speed is over, you slow down. And then the next thing you're thinking, is there a police officer with radar there or things like this? I think they have one in front of St. David's School, if I'm not mistaken. Do they, Inspector? I believe so, but that works on these places. And I know there's a cost to it, and I'm not saying money flows from trees. The other thing I think you have to be wary of is the QEW interchange at Glendale. At the region, we have a lot of conversations on that, and that's your area. That causes problems. We all know the backups on the highway at Christmas time, coming on over the Skyway going to that. And we also know, and it's brought up at the region, of cutting on for tractor trailers going towards the 405 when you're cutting on from the overpass. So you're at the gateway and you're coming in, you have to go 4 lanes wide to go over to that, which is unsafe as heck. And through my history and being private business, I don't trust a lot of people on design. It's up to the residents to speak out on these things. So if somebody in Toronto might make a decision that affects us for the next 50 years, so we have to keep on top of them, and that's what we tell regional councillors. And we're on that from a region standpoint. But my last pet peeve is St. David's Corners. Every time you have a concert in Niagara Lake, they're lined up forever. Let alone, and there's only a few ways until the concession 6 goes to the region, which I understand is a plan, and the Mewburn Road Bridge is fixed, which I understand the city of Niagara Falls and Niagara Lake and CP or CN have a deal to do that bridge. But I've heard this for too many years. So keep on it as a council, like kick butts, for lack of better words, on these things and make us move on these things, because I've been there 4 years now and I heard about concession 6 on the Mewburn Road Bridge. So every time you have an event in Niagara Lake, it's hard to get out of this town without being lined up. And I've seen the 5 o'clock traffic at the corners in St. David's, and I think there should be a roundabout. I think there should be a traffic light. There's got to be something better than what you have there now. So what I'm saying to you is, please speak out. And I talk to anybody in Niagara Lake that's talking about these things, because don't trust, that's bad words, don't depend on politicians to solve the problem, because you know your problems better than us, and bring it to us on that from a police standpoint or from a region standpoint. You still have the floor, sir, if you have any other questions.
Just one further, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate the information. One of the concerns that I'm hearing is really in regards to aggressive driving, and I'm hearing some solutions that you're providing, and I look forward to speaking with the community so that we can work with the police safety, the Niagara Lake Local Committee to work on that, and also hearing that we need to encourage members of our community to contact the service to let them know what's happening. So I appreciate your time, and it's great to have you here, and look forward to working with you even more. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. Next is Jim Collard. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Ganzel.
Just to follow up on that, I believe through the Lord Mayor's office, I believe we own 2 speed monitors, the portable signs. I know one belonged to Community Safety Committee. I think we have it back at the town's shop here. It has some sort of a battery issue. But maybe if we could get those 2 machines back into service and they could be deployed at appropriate areas, especially on weekends, it would probably help. Thank you.
Jim Collard, you're new to the area, I understand. You're in your swan song. You have a month and a half left, so welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Ganzel, friends all. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Niagara Lake, not only the prettiest town in the world, but the safest town in the region. And we clearly don't have a crime issue very often. And when we do, I'm glad, Brian, that you're here with your team to raise the bar, because every one of your officers respond as needed, when needed, in a professional and friendly way in order to help us get through our challenges. Because although we're the lowest crime community within the region, the lowest number of calls within the region, every call is important. Because, and Jim McCaffrey, you know that when your folks come out to us, they are going to do the best job they can, and that is just wonderful to know. A couple of things. As you know, I've been a member of the AMO board for the past 10 or 12 years, and I'm proud to say that at AMO, we dialogued with the province in order to get them to consider a new way of funding police services. We know that the province, in their wisdom over the last 10 years, moved within the 223 OPP detachments to have every community, every household within every community of those 423 detachments pay the same amount of money. Because police services are like apples, not apples and oranges. And when you get a call in Niagara-on-the-Lake or Port Colborne or in Red Lake, where my good friend who just passed, Phil Minette, was the mayor, the police are going to be there and do the job well. But across the province in Ontario, every community, household within the OPP family pays the same amount of money, virtually per household. Now, there may be some differences in high crime areas and versus low crime areas, but there's still a formula. I challenge this board to be a voice, to take a look at the formula that's funding the OPP families of detachments and do it here. Because clearly in our community, we're 3% of the population of the region. We have about 2% of the crime or calls within the region, and yet we're paying 12% of the cost of police servicing in the region. That's just not fair. It's not fair to our householders, because the services that we get are the same services, with the same professional services that you get in St. Catharines and other people get in Grimsby. And I'm not just speaking, by the way, for the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, although I have been tasked over the last number of years to carry this file forward. Grimsby, Lincoln, West Lincoln, Pelham, all pay more than they should. And probably, being rural, have the lowest calls. But they pay more than they should. And there's got to be a better way. There has to be a more fair way. Because what's the difference between where my aunt lived at 71 York Street in St. Catharines and where my son lives at 19 Wilberforce in Niagara-on-the-Lake? When needed, the police come out and do the job. And they do it well. And by the way, I would never ever be critical of the people on the front line in the police services of the Niagara Regional Police Force, because they are all professionals. And I know, Mr. McCaffrey, because my little sister, when she was in charge of communications within your force in St. Catharines, used to be able to tell you where to go. Absolutely. So, and she remembers those years fondly, and you particularly. So, this is a wonderful opportunity. You know, we've talked to various communities around the region. We've talked to the region. Clearly, there is a mindset that we need to get through, but we've never really chatted with the Police Services Board. You have a voice, you have a role to play in this. And if it's truly a role that you relish, should a householder in Fort Erie be paying more than a householder anywhere else? And I hope you'll come up with the answer that it should be no. Clearly, Premier McGuinty did, because it was his government that, working with AMO, that changed the way police services are paid for across the province. And that's all I'm asking. Take the model that works, that's been adapted with a phase-in period. I believe the phase-in period was 5 years. Take that model and bring it home. Your officers will still make exactly the same amount of money.
Jim, we're running out of time here, and you had another point, so
Well,
I don't want to.
I will end with that.
No, you have another point too you wanted to bring up.
That's my only request, is to have, will this Police Services Board take that issue forward and begin the discussion to find a solution?
So I'll be the first to answer you, and the answer is a quick one. No, that's not our mandate. That's not what we do. As citizens, we should probably consider it. Maybe yes, maybe no. I tend to agree with you. But as Police Service Board, what you're saying is on behalf of the region, on behalf of the province, but it's not the Police Service Board that looks at how the funding come to us, whether we agree with you or not. Now, my question to you is, what did AMO say when you brought it to them? AMO is a good voice on things like this if they feel it's correct. What did they do as a result of this?
AMO clearly only worked with the OPP family of communities, 423 of them, because the way it used to work would be that the detachment commander would show up in the mayor's office in November with a number, with absolutely no justification for the number. That's all been changed. And just to add one more point, the town of Red Lake at the time, Phil Manette's community, was paying $1,200 per household. There was a community paying less than $25 per household. That's clearly been corrected. It was corrected at the provincial level, but they won't address the regions because it's a different level and regions are elected to do the job. Clearly, I'm here today because the region hasn't done the job.
So stepping out of bounds, I'm saying I agree with you, but it's not a duty of our Police Service Board to get involved in that. As citizens, we can say what we want. The service certainly wouldn't get involved in your conversation. The chief, no, you've been consistent. What you have said, we've met about this 4 years ago, and but as with me being chair here, I'd be moving on pretty quick if somebody started bringing this up at our board, because that's not our duty on how we arrange the funding on this. So if anybody else has any comments for Jim or questions, please. Member Barrick.
Thank you, Chair. Only if the councillor has finished his commentary. I don't want to interrupt. Unless okay, thank you. So first and foremost, I want to thank the councillor for his years of service. I understand I had a quick chat with him grabbing a coffee. He's had 30 years as a councillor in Niagara Lake. It's absolutely tremendous and highly valued. Councillor and I known each other maybe about 12 years. We sat on the region's Transportation Strategy Steering Committee, myself from Port Colborne, him from Niagara Lake, of course. So Jim and I have known each other for a little while, and I have the utmost respect for him personally and your years of service, sir. So I would love to leave it at that, but the point I wanted to address is he has been consistent on this message for his community in Niagara on the Lake, and that is appreciated and valued, but it would be certainly inconsistent with perhaps other local municipalities in terms of that fairness. The model now, maybe there's winners and losers, but the model being proposed just shifts the winners and losers. It's based on impact assessment. So if your house is valued at $1 million, or your community average household is $1 million, you pay a percentage. If your community's average household value is $200,000, you pay a percentage. And so some would view that as fair. But regardless, I appreciate your commentary, Chair. It's not necessarily the Police Services Board's role to advocate or lobby its funding model. The way the Act works currently, as folks here know, is we recommend a dollar amount to the Niagara region, and the region actually approves it or not approves it. That's the current model, everyone is aware. And I appreciate and applaud the efforts of the councillor on advocating for his community over the years. Thank you.
Any other comments for Jim? Jim, I wish you all the best. And again, I think we've done about 3, so this is time for the 4th. Thank you for being a great councillor.
Thank you for those kind words. Thank you, David, for those kind words. I appreciate them. It is a never-ending battle to try and find fairness. And again, my only comment would be, if it can be found over here in this basket, why can't we get to it in this? And maybe the region needs to step up and do the job.
Thank you very much, Jim. Next is Janice Thompson. We all know Janice as chairwoman of the Niagara Parks Commission. So, Janice, thank you for coming.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the Police Services Board. I would just like to thank you enormously on behalf of the Niagara Parks Commission for your continued ongoing strong oversight of the Niagara Parks Police and of the support of the existence of the Niagara Parks Police as a policing force within the Niagara Parks. The work they do is extraordinary, and the breadth of work that they do is incredible. The number of visitors, as you pointed out earlier, it's a lot of people that they're providing safety and security for, and I appreciate the support of this police board, the services board, that you have continued to support the Niagara Parks Police and the work that they do. I wanted to convey that. And if I could make a general statement, please, regarding policing in Niagara. Through my role at the Niagara Parks, I've had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of the individuals that provide those services for us. And when I hear the words services, as I just used, or resources, it sounds so clinical and technical, when in fact it's real live human beings with families and supporters and people behind them. And we are very fortunate in Niagara to have these dedicated, highly trained people with great integrity, these professionals serving all of us throughout the region. I just wanted to convey that that has been my experience, my observation, and I'm very, very proud to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, and I thank you very much for your compliments, and we have had a great relationship under your tenure and for 100 and some odd years of getting along with the Niagara Parks Police. Chief, do you have any comments, or is that where you're going? Or?
I was just going to reach up and thank Janice for those kind words, and it means a lot, and we value our partnership that we have with the Niagara Parks Police and have for 100 and, well, we've only been in existence for 47 years. So all 47 years, we've had a great relationship with the Niagara Parks Police, and we thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership with the Niagara Parks Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And do any other board members have any comments or questions for the chair of the Niagara Parks? Again, Janice, thank you for those kind words. Next, Mayor Dart, up again. Thank you, Pat, for still allowing us here. You have the podium, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. And you can have the room as long as you want, because then I don't have to work in here. So I'm good with that. And then I just want to cover a couple of things that were mentioned here. As Inspector McCaffrey had said, I've known he and his family for many, many years, so we've always worked well together. We've had a mutual respect. I knew his mother and father a long time ago, and I'm not sure how his mother put up with his father, but that's a different story. But so the Mewburn Bridge was discussed. That will be open, supposed to be open in 2019. So that will be opened, and after that it'll be determined whether that Con 6 will become a regional road or not. It probably will, but that's to be decided. St. David's four-way stop now. They're doing the region is going to do a study on it next year and take a look, have a stakeholder interviews and things to see what will happen there. Something has to happen. It's a bit of a nightmare right now. And I just had one question for Well, one more comment and then a question. So when, again, as I said before, when they talk about only having 2 police officers here, I've seen on many, many, many occasions where we've had 30 here. You know, in 10 minutes, we've had 30, and Inspector McCaffrey alluded to the one in Virgil a couple of years ago. So, I mean, in no time at all, we had exactly what we needed. So we're serviced very, very well. The last question I had, he mentioned something about the 4-way stop over here on Line 3 Creek Road and the incidents that happened. I believe that was the first day, but I just want to find out if since then, what the incidents have been like since then.
We continue to monitor that intersection. As recent as this week, traffic reported to me they set an initiative right there. Unfortunately, I don't have the results of it, but I can find out, Mr. Mayor, and get back to you as to how the results are.
I don't think we've had any since, have we? Any accidents?
I don't believe so.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you. Thank you.
And Mayor Dart, I believe at the region, they said they were going to analyze that after 1 year through Ron Tripp, wasn't it?
Yes, but I think, in all honesty, as Inspector McCaffrey said, I think the tail is in the details. So the fact that there haven't been any accidents since, we'd have one a week, one every 2 weeks. So it was always, and some were serious, some were incidental, but we haven't had any since. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Is there any other comments or questions from anyone in the gallery? I mean, you always have a chance to email or anything else, but no one else has any comments? Inspector McCaffrey, do you have anything else?
Maybe just to conclude, Mr. Chair, I think it's important to know if there's any issues which occur in the Niagara Lake area which require extra resources, it's just a matter of a phone call, and I do that on a regular basis to have the required resource to come into this town here. We call traffic. We'll call any other unit. We'll call any other district. A couple incidents were highlighted. Although we have 2 assigned, we have many other resources which come into the town on a moment's notice and have to assist as required.
Thank you very much. Chief, do you have any other comments at all?
No, I just wanted to thank Jim for his work and as the district commander. He does a great job liaising with both Mayor Diodati and Mayor Dart, and it certainly will be responsive to any of the community concerns. So thanks very much for your efforts, Jim.
Thank you, Inspector. All those in favor of receiving this report? Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda items. If anyone, I'm going to try and word this nicely, Chief, but don't take any disrespect. We're going into the boring items somewhat now, but some of them can be enlightening. So please understand what I said. Chief, I hope you didn't take disrespect. But regardless, if anybody has to leave, I understand. Thank you. We're in the consent agenda items now. I'd like to move in block items 170 to 176. Mover is Member Barrick, seconder Member Stewart. Who wants to lead off with the charge with the questions? Member Stewart, please tell me which one. And we move these all in block if anybody has agendas there, and then I allow the members to ask questions on individual items. Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 different items. Number 175 first, the crime analysis. And this would be through you to the chief. I guess the one area that stood out was the one that we seem to have a little more of than Ontario and Canada, and that's fraud. And I was just wondering if the chief could outline what programs we either have in place or are planning to put in place that could help in the crime prevention area and the area of fraud and helping our communities to reduce that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, our fraud unit does a really good job of getting around to our various communities for a number of presentations, particularly to our seniors group that tend to be perhaps a little bit more vulnerable, perhaps a little bit more. They grew up in an era where they trusted people and trusted that organizations such as the Canada Revenue scam that has impacted not only us here in Niagara, but right across the province. So when they hear a phone call from Revenue Canada, a trusted organization, they tend to be quite vulnerable, unfortunately, to those types of calls. So we've put a lot of effort into community engagement with those groups, speaking at retirement homes and whatnot, as well as using social media on a regular basis through our Twitter account, Facebook, and also on our website to try and bring awareness. We rely heavily on Crime Stoppers as well. All in all, it's anything and everything that we can do to educate the public as to the various trending frauds, we do that.
Anyone else have any questions on item 175? Member Ganzel.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. On this item, my comments on here was dealing with the intelligence-led policing, which you know I'm a big supporter of. Recently on the CBC, I think it was Monday night, there was a segment on the National dealing with the Los Angeles Police Department coming up with more of a crimes analysis, which I'll refer to as basically big data harvesting, and trying to be predictive of saying on a specific street corner, et cetera. In my many years back of being involved in policing, looking at that, I remember at the time Sacramento was the leader with the same sort of concepts. And I know in our service back in the early 90s, we implemented that, and I believe when we implemented CopStat in our service, which led to our street crime units and et cetera. But I'm more curious because I put a lot of effort into, or a lot of moving forward on more of a predictive world in intelligence-led policing, especially with the RTOC coming online and et cetera. Are we, in this report, are we finally moving forward in that area?
So through you, Mr. Chair, with regards to crime analysis, I think one of the things that we've told the board that our focus going forward as a command team and as an organization was that we wanted to use an evidence-informed approach to any of the decisions that we make to help guide our operational service delivery model. We are doing our best to leverage the data that we had and coordinate that data so that we can make those evidence-informed decisions. We're not at the stage yet where we're using predictive analysis. I'm not sure we'll ever get there. It's a bit of a controversial technology to be able to predict when and where a crime is going to occur. But what the data that we do have informs our district commanders of where the trends have been, and we can, from 5 years worth of data, we know that during a particular time of year, we can expect that there will be an increase in crime in a certain area. And anecdotally, we knew that before. We had a hunch, we had a feeling, just as we have a hunch and we have a feeling that on full moons, we have an increased activity that involves us having increased number of mental health apprehensions, as an example. But now rather than relying upon our hunches and our good feelings, we're relying upon the data to help us guide those decisions.
Yes, and thank you for that. And basically the takeaway from that CBC piece was exactly that. It's a two-edged sword, and the television piece made it clear that the heavy collection of information trying to be predictive has some social negative impacts on society in that, and I would hate to see that we would take the pendulum to that level. So I appreciate your direction and where you're taking the service. So again, thank you.
Any other on 175? Member Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you. I just want to offer a comment. When I'm looking at the crime incidence and rates of selected offenses on page 9, or beginning on page 9, I guess my only comment would be that it would appear that we have enough detail and subdivision here such that we'd be in a good position to recognize any upticks with regard to cannabis legislation that's coming in. I'm looking at total crime, crime under 5, over 5, etc. I think we've, unless you would care to differ, I think we got sufficient subdivision so that we could reasonably isolate any reasonable cause, including pending cannabis legislation coming in with regard to causes of crime in Niagara. Would you share that opinion? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, generally, yes. It's always difficult to have a cause and effect, 100% conclusion that because the Cannabis Act comes in on October 17th, that any increase, we would want to look at those numbers, not in isolation, but consider all other factors as well in terms of, has the population increased, a number of other factors. But I agree. I think we are in good shape, and we'll be able to track the impact from the cannabis legislation.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm just wondering, calls for service. Is there any analysis with regard to calls for service, such as a pure policing call, like it's in the right bailiwick, we are the people that should be called, and et cetera, as opposed to mental health, where we seem to be the default agency that gets the calls so often? Thinking about the categories like frivolous or unwarranted, call for policing, nuisance, false alarms, that sort of stuff. Do we do any subdivision of that to truly understand what portion of the stuff we get and we classify as a call for service that actually genuinely needs to be in the policing bailiwick, as opposed to what we're doing to cover off other agencies that may or may not need our assistance? Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we do that analysis as well. This particular report is delving into the specific incidents that relate specifically to a crime. Call analysis or calls for service analysis, completely different avenue, but these are included in the overall or captured in the overall calls for service. I mean, you're quite correct in that there are a number of calls for service that we respond to that, quite frankly, we all question ourselves as to whether or not we should be responding to those. Mental health apprehensions is something where, if we were the first call for somebody that was suffering cancer, to go and respond to somebody that was a cancer patient, there would be an outcry from the public. Mental health is, it's a health issue. And unfortunately, it's become a crisis, and we have become the first call of response and the last call of response, because there are no other agencies. We're working closely with EMS and with the Canadian Mental Health Association to try and divert those calls to where they should be going. Those discussions continue, and we're always looking at ways that we can try and offload those calls that we quite rightly shouldn't be responding to. The unfortunate part sometimes is to find somebody that's going to respond to them if we don't.
Yeah, thank you. Green means go, I guess. I don't know. I would only suggest that continuing to dissect the reason and rationale for calls for service is very important to other agencies that obviously are going to need the assist to get the attention and the funding and support to take on their mission. We are not obviously in all circumstances the best suited, but we are the court of last resort, I should say. And if we're going to change that, then I think we need to work together, both as boards and services, to highlight what the needs are on behalf of others, so that we can get back to the business of doing policing, which is what we're supposed to be all about. Thanks.
How much do we owe town of Niagara and Lake for that incident? All done? Any other comments on item 175? Okay, I have one. Chief, on page 9, the total sexual violations against children. It's doubled in 2016 and 2017 to 59 and 61. And that's only 59 or 61, but it's 59 or 61. Why has it gone up? Can you answer that? Or because it looked like it was consistently around 28, 30, something like that. If you want to get back to us, fine.
Yeah, I prefer, if I could, to if I could reach out to our child abuse unit and see if we can get a better explanation as to why that is. I think I have some inkling as to why that is, but I'd rather weigh in with them.
I appreciate that. No other questions on item 175? Member Stewart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And looking at 176, the next one, and it's really not so much a question as a comment, and probably for maybe the public that doesn't realize that in the current Operating Police Services Act, we have 5 core responsibilities, and one of those is assistance to victims. And I would just like to do a shout out to Victim Services Niagara, who, through their partnership with us, that volunteer organization, does immense work to helping us fulfill that responsibility. And there's a lot of people that volunteer their time to help people who've been victims of crime. It's just, my kudos go out to them in my time on the board. I mean, I relish the idea that we actually support them financially so they can carry on with their work, and it helps us meet one of the key goals in the Police Services Act. So maybe through you to the chief, pass along, at least for me, and I'm sure for other board members, our thanks for the work that they do and helping us meet one of our adequacy standards in a very efficient way. And I know there's even some retired police personnel or whatever that volunteer their time to work with victims. And so I think it's just a great thing we have in Niagara. I don't know if everybody else has one in the province, but I'm certainly very proud of the one we have.
Certainly, we all must agree on that, and that's well spoken. Chief, do you have a comment?
I just would echo those comments, and I think it would mean a lot to the staff and to the volunteers if perhaps the board were to draft up a letter of thanks or appreciation for their efforts, because I couldn't agree more. It's a fantastic partnership that we have, and they do great work.
Thank you, and that'll just be a direction. Deb, if you can do that, please. If anybody else has any comments on that, please. Okay, item 176, is there any other comments on that? Member Stewart? Anybody else have any comments on any of the points on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next, we're into new business. Item number 177, the revitalization of Community Watch Program, the Safe Watch app. May I have a mover and seconder, please, to put this on the floor? Member McKendrick, Member Bonham. Comments or questions on this item? Chief, do you have any comments on this item, or? It's a slam dunk. We agree with it. So, okay, all those in favor? Carried. Item 178, the Regional Municipality of Niagara approval of Corporate Services Committee recommendations, long-term accommodations. Mover and seconder, please. Member Stewart, Member Barrick. Comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. 179. Some of these will be quick to go through. Memorandum of Understanding with the Ministry of Labor. Mover and seconder again, please. Member Bonham, Member McKendrick. Comments or questions on this? Member Ganzel.
Thank you, Chair. Just more of a question of trying to sort of read through this and get the gist of what they're after. Is this not over the issue of who has jurisdiction at an incident, especially if it's more of a criminal versus an accident? Is that sort of the outcome? I know that's always been a bit of a, I'll call it a bit of a friction point occasionally, because some of these are criminal that led to the accident or the incident. And was it not sort of more of a jurisdiction? Like who had the right to be there first, if you want to call it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, oftentimes because of the reporting mechanisms, it's us that ends up being the first response. So it really, the goal of the MOU is to outline the roles and responsibilities as to when it becomes the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Labor and when it becomes the jurisdiction of the Niagara Regional Police Service. We've had a great working relationship with them, and this is a refresh of a MOU that we already had in existence.
Okay, thank you for that.
Member Bonham.
Yeah, I would just add that not too many years ago, the legislation changed such that criminal charges can be brought for employers as a result of workplace incidents. So then there has been a bit of a change in the relationship of policing versus local plant business type investigations. But it is very much, in my opinion, from reviewing it, an issue of who takes the lead. That doesn't mean the other individual or the organization is left out, but there needs to be a lead dog, so to speak, to carry things through, at least initially, and then move on. I think that's what this does, is provide that clarification as best able. Thanks.
Any other comments on this item? All those in favor? Carried. I'd like to move items number 180 and 181 in a block, please. Can I have a mover and seconder on that? Member Stewart, Member Bonham. Comments or questions on these two items? One is a special fund request for Heartland Forest, and another one special fund request for the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center. I'm sorry?
All good causes.
Yep. All those in favor? Carried. So that's it for our public agenda, unless somebody has anything in new business or anybody in the crowd has any questions for us. If not, we'll be going into confidential. Okay, this part of the public is over. Thank you.